Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Why does the church oppose permanent sterilization, even for couples who feel done? In this episode, we are going to unpack the deeper meaning behind the church's teaching on vasectomies and other forms of permanent sterilization. And it's more than just rules. It's about trust, intimacy, and really the true purpose of sex and marriage. So if you've ever wondered, what's the big deal? This one's for you. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the podcast for Catholic women that helps you improve your sex life, strengthen your marriage, and embrace God's design for love. My name is Ellen, and today I am joined by my amazing semi-regular co-host, Kathleen Schvanis. All right. So why is it that the church is against permanent sterilization?
It's a big topic.
It's such a big topic I think for a couple of reasons. I want to talk about like two chunks of reasons. Yeah. I'm going to call them chunks of reasons because there's kind of like a lot in each one. There's the one side where it's just getting a vasectomy is kind of just culturally appropriate in the US, in the UK.
It's almost,
yeah.
I mean, I will say that my husband at a previous position, I think it was after we had our third. And after she was born, one of his coworkers said, "Did you get the snip?" And he was like, "No." But it was just like, "Oh, yeah, you should consider it. I did it. Just, it's a weekend with a bag of frozen peas on your junk. That's it." And it's like, but I mean, he's gotten that question after probably third, fourth, and fifth kids. Like, it's just from someone, It's like, well, you're finally doing it. Like, it's just like the next step of the process.
It's just expected that once you've, completed your family, then you'll, the husband will get a vasectomy.
Yeah.
And so there's that like expectation side, and there's a lot in there. And then the other side is there's kind of this like, well, we have a family. We've been open to life. Maybe we have 6 kids. Maybe we have lots of kids. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, we've been open to life. Can't we just be done now? We want to kind of speak into those two. Is there any other camps that you were thinking of with vasectomies or permanent sterilization? We'll also talk a little bit about tubal ligation. The teaching is the same regardless of the procedure.
Exactly.
So we'll use the word vasectomy mostly, but the teaching is the same.
Yeah, no, I think those are basically the two camps that exist.
Hey, Ellen here, and I needed to cut into the episode because as I was editing it, I realized that we very obviously missed a huge camp, which is I have a very serious medical reason that I cannot get pregnant again or I will possibly die. And I realize we did not discuss this particularly in this episode. However, I want to make it very clear that what we talk about in this episode still very much applies to that situation, and all of the morality, like morals things that we talk about in this episode apply exactly to that situation of very seriously having like some reason that we cannot get pregnant again. And why can't I get a tubal ligation or my husband get a vasectomy? So just want to mention that area also very much applies to everything that we talk about in this episode. So, all right. So like, why does the church teach that we can't do this? Right. I mean, that second camp that I was talking about, right. We have lots of kids. We have a lot of them. Mm-hmm. We have 6, we have 8, right? We feel done. Or maybe we have 2 and we feel done. Why can't I just get a vasectomy? So first off is sex, the natural design of sex is unitive and procreative.
Yes.
It unites the spouses together on a physical as well as like a chemical hormonal level. And it is procreative in that like sex makes babies, right? There's not a question of where babies come from. They come from sex. And that is the natural design of sex. And sterilization, whether via a vasectomy or tubal ligation or some other form, deliberately frustrates the procreative purpose, and it deliberately closes off the possibility of life. And so it's different than just by chance the possibility of life being closed off, right? So a just by chance closing off is old age, infertility, things like that. Those are not in our, like, we're not directly intending those things. They are just happening to us.
Right.
But direct sterilization, it is a form of mutilation. Oh my gosh. I added a syllable in there.
You did. Mutilation. Yeah, I think that's really important that it is. It's, you know, and we have this conversation with like any, you know, sort of like birth control. We make this argument that the point of medicine and like medical procedures is to correct the body to work as it should, right? But looking at something like these sterilizations, right? Like we are mutilating the body to not work properly. Right? Yeah. Like that is like the body is good. I mean, we have the theology of the body, right? Like the body is a temple. It is a gift. It is designed for a purpose and for a reason. We are called to cooperate within that, right? And then to go and mutilate ourselves so that it doesn't work as it ought is a grave evil. And we just have to see it for what it is. Like, you know, we can come up with all of the, okay, but what if? Yeah. Like God gives us these, like he understands our woes and our struggles. He understands that we have 6 kids and we can't handle another. And he gives us ways to deal with that and to manage that. And I think ultimately it just boils down to trust, which we can kind of get into as we keep talking, but.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 quotes I want to pull up that tie in very well to what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, we're called to respect bodily integrity, right? Our body has purposes. Our body is made good. Every facet of our body is made for a purpose. And so this is Catechism 2297. Except when performed for strictly therapeutic medical reasons, directly intended amputations, mutilations, and sterilizations performed on innocent persons are against the moral law. So that's just like super clear that the Catechism says, no, we cannot do this. This is a mutilation of the body.
Yeah.
Now, I want to quickly talk about the difference between direct sterilization and indirect sterilization, because we're using the term direct sterilization and it is different than indirect sterilization.
Yeah.
So direct sterilization means that your goal is sterilization. So choosing to get a vasectomy, actually, it's easier to do this example with a tubal ligation. Choosing to get a tubal ligation.
Ligation.
It's
like litigation.
Litigation. Yeah, we're lawyers. I'm just adding syllables.
I know you are. You're adding syllables today.
We're gonna go to court. And litigate this.
And litigate our tubes.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, so funny.
I have a 9-month-old who is not sleeping.
Listen, it's all good. We know. We've all been there.
All right. Tubal ligation.
Tubal ligation.
All right. Choosing to get a tubal ligation because you do not want any more children. That is right. That is different than choosing to have a full hysterectomy because your quality of life is so severely impaired by endometriosis that you cannot function for 1 to 2 weeks out of the month because of how the endometriosis affects your cycle. And this is a real thing that happens to women with severe endometriosis. Or choosing to remove one or both ovaries because of ovarian cancer. Choosing to have a full hysterectomy because of ovarian cancer. These are forms of indirect sterilization. The goal is removing a part of the body that is no longer performing its proper function and is affecting your quality of life in such a way that it does not make sense to, continue in that way. Now, there's so much gray area. So much gray area with indirect sterilization. And so my number one suggestion is find a well-formed, good priest who knows theology of the body, who cares about life, who is, a very pro-life priest, which is a ridiculous statement that we should even make.
I know.
All of our priests should be so pro-life.
Truly.
But like find a really solid priest and ask for counsel if you are in one of those situations.
If you don't know a priest like that, if you can't find somebody or you just aren't familiar with someone, there's also the National Catholic Bioethics Center.
Yeah, of course.
Which you can always reach out to with a question. Yeah. And I mention this because I have a good friend who, I don't remember if she actually reached out or not, but she was talking about it because they have very, very grave reason to avoid kind of indefinitely for the rest of their life. They have to, or her life is on the line. So, she was counseled towards a hysterectomy and they ended up
by a secular, I want to just clarify this story.
Yes.
She was counseled by her secular doctor to seek out a full hysterectomy. This was not the counsel of the Catholic Church. Okay, continue.
Yeah. But anyway, but they, I don't remember if they actually did, but we were talking about reaching out to the Catholic Bioethics Center. So that is always an option that you can do if you cannot find a priest. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also want to speak into, and this is a quote from Humana Vitae, which was written by Pope Paul VI. Because there's also a lot of times I'll hear, contraception, sterilization, like we're going to like a lesser evil here. It would be better to use condoms than let a marriage fall apart. It would be better to receive a have the man have a vasectomy than the woman die in childbirth. And I am not trying to make light of these, but I'm going to just read you what the Supreme Pontiff in the 60s had to say about this. And the church has not changed her stance in any way. And this actually was always the stance. Neither is it valid to argue as a justification for sexual intercourse, which is deliberately contraceptive. So meaning like sex that is either sterilization or using, condoms, birth control, etc. That a lesser evil is to be preferred to a greater one, or that such intercourse would merge with procreative acts of past and future to form a single entity and so be qualified by exactly the same moral goodness as these. So that's a lot of like, what in the world did he just say?
Yeah.
But basically, we cannot argue that somehow contraception, whether sterilization or, birth control, condoms, whatever, we cannot argue that some lesser evil, the lesser evil of contraception is permissible in order to avoid a greater evil. In moral law, you cannot commit an evil in order to avoid another evil, right? So another way to think about this is the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take, which, what is I was learning about this, side note, that doctors don't even really take the Hippocratic Oath anymore.
What?
Is
that true?
Yeah.
Like in med school?
It's
like at their graduation?
It's kind of optional because of all of these mutilations that we have in, current
so
medical. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me say this and then. So the Hippocratic Oath that hopefully most doctors are taking. So the Hippocratic Oath states, this is one of the examples of the Hippocratic Oath. If you have 5 people who need 5 vital organs and it would save their life if they received an organ transfusion or a transplant or a blood transfusion or whatever, right? They need these 5 vital organs. These 5 different people need 1 organ each. We could kill a perfectly healthy person and take their 5 organs and save all 5 of those people, we can immediately see how that is so not morally permissible. We cannot take, but 5 people versus 1 person, right? No, we cannot take a lesser evil. We cannot do a lesser evil thing in order to prevent a greater evil, right? We cannot kill 1 healthy person in order to save 5 healthy people. Right, or I mean, to save 5 people who need medical attention or whatever, right? So that's the moral precept that we have. We cannot, like, there is absolutely no moral grounds for committing a lesser evil in order to avoid a greater evil. That does not compute.
Yeah. And I will say too, just because I hear the argument a lot that just like our marriage needs this, like we need to take away the stress of having children. Like we need, we're like kind of drifting apart because of the stress around our sex life. And like, girl, I get that. Like I am there, but we have to remember that 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, sex is not
10
actually
times out of 10.
10 times out of 10. Sex is not actually the problem, right? It's going to be a greater problem of overall intimacy that needs to be addressed, not just a lack of sex or not enough sex or whatever it is.
Sex in this situation is a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Like it's, just imagine, you've got a crack in your kitchen counter. And kitchen counter like typically still works. Let's say it's a granite countertop. Okay, so you've got a crack. Every time that you like use the countertop, the crack might get just like slightly bigger. Sex is not the crack. Sex is the magnifying glass that you then hold over the crack and go, whoa, this is such a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The crack is an issue of intimacy in your marriage, an issue of closeness, unity, holiness, etc. in your marriage. Sex magnifies those problems. So a lot of times, and like the crack maybe just isn't even visible yet without the magnifying glass. And so we think, okay, we've got this issue with sex. Sex is hard. We have too many kids. We have NFP is too hard. We have to avoid pregnancy for the rest of our lives. We couldn't possibly use NFP for that long. We only get a few available days a month. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And so we think that sex is the problem, but it is truly not. Like it truly is a magnifying glass to the deeper problems that we have in our marriage that need to be addressed. So in fact, the best way to address those, and I know this is a really hard pill to swallow, but if we're having issues with sex and it feels like sex is the problem, the best thing to do is stop having sex and address the problems. So actually NFP is helping you here to have these periods of time where you're not having sex so that you can address the problems. St. Paul says that couples like can set aside sex for time in order to focus on like prayer and piety. Like that means fixing your marriage.
Yeah.
Like that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's saying, put sex to the side so that you can fix the crack. Okay, so I want to like transition a little bit back into vasectomies and away from the cracks in our countertops. And like just talk about like what a vasectomy really means, because and this is the problem with birth control, is that we just see it as avoiding pregnancy. I get asked a lot, you probably do too, Kathleen, just in the work that you do in fertility awareness, like what is the difference between using natural family planning and using contraception. The goal is the same.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time, right? Okay. The goal is the same. The ends do not justify the means. That is the biggest thing that we have to state here. But a vasectomy, permanent sterilization, is not just preventing pregnancy. And the same goes for contraception. It is not just preventing pregnancy. It is permanently shutting off for a vasectomy, right? Or temporarily shutting off a healthy, natural function of the body. It is deliberately making sex sterile. And that actually changes the meaning of sex. Yeah. Because sex is a total, full, natural union of persons, which includes our fertility. Our fertility is part of us, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's so obvious to see that in women because our reproductive organs are inside of us, right? We talk a lot about like, we'll say, oh, this is in me, right? This dream I have is a part of me. It's inside of me. Like when we talk about something that is really important to us, it's in us.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so, and our reproductive organs are in us. They are a part of us. And that's like a really cool visual. And so like if we're coming together in a total, full, complete union with another person, that includes every part of us. It includes our fertility, right? A permanent sterilization, a vasectomy says, I want most of you, but I don't want all of you.
Yeah.
Right. Or, it says like, I'm willing to give you most of me, but not all of me. I don't want to give you my fertility.
Right.
I don't want to open that up to you. Right. And so we're actually closing ourselves off to the amazing, deep, like incredible union that is present in sex. Like sex is not just for making babies. Sex is not just for the pleasure of it. Like there's so much more. And we have scientific evidence of this like natural bonding that happens when two people have sex. Like it actually changes the brain chemistry of the person. And you actually become more like the person that you have sex with every time that you have sex with them. Like your brain changes to be more like that person. It's funny. I was reflecting on this and thinking about how like, that joke of like, oh, we've been married for so long. Like when a married couple will like respond the same way to something. Like my husband and I just did this last night. We like each saw a friend doing something funny at a different time. And we said the exact same thing to him.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Like we've been married for too long as the joke, right?
Yeah.
Obviously we have not been married for too long. Like we will be married for the rest of our lives.
Till death.
But like it is actually true that we actually become more like each other. And it is mainly because of the chemical reactions that happen in our brain because of the hormones that are released during sex. Isn't that wild?
It is wild. And you know what it kind of leads into is going back to Humanae Vitae, Pope Paul VI's prediction that if, contraception and birth control and sterilizations and all of this became a cultural norm, that it would increase the rates of infidelity in marriage, right? Which obviously has been entirely true.
Yeah.
And it goes along the same lines to say the same thing. Like if we are having sex, but withholding our fertility, right? Kind of only going for the parts of our spouse that are convenient and not for their entire self. Like there's no natural consequence to that. And if there's no natural consequence, then it can be like, oh, well, I can do this thing and like nobody else has to know. Right. Yeah. So then it can become, oh, well, I could just go ahead and do this with this other person and there's no way anyone's going to know because there's no natural consequence. Right. And so really all of that to say that when there is that natural consequence, when we are giving over not just our bodies, but our fertility, like that is a situation of immense trust, right? Like that you are entrusting this person with your fertility, come what may, baby or no baby, right? And that immense trust, right? Just it grows, connection and love and intimacy just kind of flourish from that. So it's not just about like, the having babies or the not having babies. It's that when we leave ourselves open, right, there's always a natural consequence to sex, whether we're fertile or not. Like there is the potential. Maybe you misread your chart by a day, right? Like you leave God that like 0.6% chance of doing whatever he wants to do. So there's always a potential that just means that you need to be in this trusting and deeply intimate, deeply loving relationship in order to allow each other that full gift of self.
Yeah. And this is ultimately, this is a freedom issue. And our culture has defined freedom in the wrong way. It's like not actually freedom. It's like, oh, freedom means I can just do whatever I want, whenever I want. And so like vasectomy is giving me freedom. And here's the thing is that like, it is not just about following a rule. Freedom in this situation, in leaving your body the way it is about not letting fear or convenience dictate how you live your marriage, right? If we're permanently sterilizing because we don't want another kid, that is, we're letting ourselves live by fear. Like fear is dictating how we are choosing to live. Like it's about trust, which is what Kathleen was just talking about. Like trusting God with your family, even when it's scary, and about loving each other completely. I have a friend who has 6 kids and it's just like, I would love to get a like tubal ligation. Like she's just like, we are so done having kids. I just can't.
Yeah.
And they were like 6 kids in 8 years. It was just like, it was a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And she's like, but I'm obedient, right? And she has, now she's several years out from that. I think her youngest is like maybe 4 or 5. Like now they've been able to kind of avoid for a while. And she's just really come into this beautiful space of trust.
Yeah.
Of that, wow, like these kids, we were meant to have these kids. They are so good for us. Like they are sanctifying us.
Yeah.
And all those years of little kid land was really sanctifying us. And there's just this beautiful trust now as she's starting to enter into like perimenopause of, wow, I mean, we don't want another kid, but if that's what it's supposed to be, it would be okay.
Yeah.
Like we would figure it out. We could, our it's just like our family's so big now. I mean, I don't even think we'd notice another kid.
What's one more? Yeah.
What's one more?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that's kind of where I am right now. Ours are ranging from, I mean, Josie will be 3 in next month, right? So 3.
Yeah. So you're kind of like
12, right? So, and this is the longest right now at almost 3 years. This is the longest I have gone in my entire marriage not pregnant. So it's like it's a total shift, right? We've got 5 kids in 10 years. And yeah, it's just this place where we've kind of discerned that we are not called to actively try. But at the same time, we're kind of getting to a point where it's just like, okay, you know what? Like maybe we're done, and we're fine if we're done. Like we're not like pining away where I normally am. By the time my baby turns 2, I'm like, okay, time for another baby. I have not gotten to that point, you know, and it's this totally like new sense of trust. Yeah, that's very interesting. So I empathize with your friend very, very much so.
Yeah. And it's just such a beautiful, like, when we can actually give our fear to the Lord. I mean, and it's okay to have a fear of having another baby. Like, it's really okay. When we can give that fear to the Lord and let the Lord transform that fear into trust.
Yeah.
I mean, we've just taken a giant leap toward heaven. Like, just giant leap. And
honestly, I think
there's just so much peace available. Yeah, I just wanted to say peace.
Yeah.
There's peace.
Yeah, I often think to myself that it is like the Christian life is such a gift, because there's certain things in the Christian life that I cannot imagine having to do totally on my own without the knowledge, either the teaching that we have or God there to just back us up. So and one of them is death. How do you explain death to children without a Christian like understanding and teaching, right?
I know, right?
So
my children are like excited to die. It's maybe we went too far.
Maybe we've gone a little too far. Yeah. Exactly.
Like
same. Some of my kids have just been like, I kind of just want to die. And you're just like, okay, let's not say that out loud. Anyway, but then the second thing is family life. Like, you know, to feel like I have so many secular friends who are just like, nope, this is how many we want to have. This is what we're going to do. You know, like, and it's all on them to keep their family as they want it. Mm-hmm. Like the pressure that would be for me, I would collapse under that pressure, right?
Oh, I know.
Versus just being able to live in this freedom that like, okay, I know what I want, but ultimately I know that I don't have to be so careful and I don't have to be so anal about achieving that. And that if I feel moved in a moment to be intimate with my husband at a time that's risky, I can allow myself to be moved because I know that God is only going to give me what he requires of me for my sanctity and for my goodness, right? I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. He knows how I'm going to be if I end up with another baby, right? He knows if I can handle it and he knows if I can't. And if I can't, he will not give it to me, right? If I feel like I can't, but I actually can, he might give it to me. And I might go through a little bit of a crisis, but I can know that I'm going to come out because he has me.
Yeah.
Right? Like we just, to know that there is a greater plan outside of us and to be able to live freely where we don't just have to be so obsessive over the pills or the charts or the whatever, right? To allow ourselves the freedom of flexibility and to be moved by the Spirit is such a gift because we have a God who loves us and who is only going to give us that which is good for us. Even if we don't see it right away, you know, even if it's going to take us time to see it, we can trust that we will get there and that one day we will see the good and the necessity of what he's given us.
And that's the Christian journey, right? I mean, there are so
Truly.
many incredible saints who have quotes just on like how good, really like objectively looking from the outside, bad things were in their lives. Like it was like Saint Therese of Lisieux was just like so happy to experience tuberculosis. Just like, great. Yeah. Like
Wild.
The Lord is like giving me such a gift. Right? Like tuberculosis,
like,
you guys.
Blessed Chiara, right? Was like
Badano.
the same way with her cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
And even Carlo Acutis.
And it was St. Francis, like he became untouchable because it was just like, okay, you torture St. Francis and he's like, awesome, I'm so glad to suffer for the Lord, right? You take St. Francis's food away, he's like, I'm supposed to fast. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
Like, And it's just, I mean, he became absolutely untouchable because everything that came to St. Francis, he was like, this is from the Lord and he will make such good out of it. Right? And like, we can say the same thing, even if we don't understand something. Like, I mean, and we say like happy to, right? I think happy to suffer certain things. And I think that some of the saints like they're so far ahead of us that it's like, well, that sounds ridiculous, right?
I'll never be happy to suffer, but maybe one day I can joyfully
I think that
suffer.
there is like, you know, there's a difference between happiness and joy. And joy is a choice, right? So we can have something terrible happen and we can be like, wow, what a gift to suffer for the Lord.
Yeah.
And like choose the joy of like salvation in that bad thing, right? And so it's like, okay, I'm pregnant with my 7th kid in 8 years. And I just like, I don't understand. I can't do this. But we can choose the greater joy of like, okay, this is so hard and I'm going to hate it and it's going to be awful. And, you know, the both and this is going to help me grow closer to God. And like, that's such a good thing. And it's still going to be hard. Again, it's still going to be really hard. Okay. There's your final thoughts on holiness according to vasectomies.
It's a hard one today, but you know what?
If you were listening to this and somebody was popping into your head the whole time that you were listening, please share this episode with that person that was popping into your head. I mean, maybe it's your parents. How many of us, our parents have vasectomy, or I mean, our dads or our father-in-laws? Like that generation before was like, I think it is decreasing a bit, but yeah, share this with the person that was popping into your head while you were listening to this.
Because you know what? Speaking of parents, I think there's a lot of people who just don't even realize that this is against church teaching. I know people like that who have done this because of pressure from their parents, ultimately, not even realizing that this is not okay according to the church. So, you know, we can instruct the ignorant. It's a work of mercy.
Yep, right. Thanks so much for listening. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast, could you do me a favor really quick? Go into the podcast app that you are listening in, and if it gives you an option to rate and review, please rate and review this podcast. It helps us so much in reaching new listeners and spreading the word about this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.